My name is Stefan Augustby. I'm founder of Insight Lab, and I'm going to talk about how we can leverage generative AI to strengthen the relevance of qualitative consumer insight. And I will try to organize the webinar around 3 questions. First, where can GenAI replace human labor? So obviously we need to make qualitative consumer insight projects more agile, more affordable. And then the second question is, where is human intervention or contribution still required, under the assumption that we can replace at least part of the human labor by GenAI based automation? Because obviously we want to keep the key benefits of qualitative insight. That's the high quality of insights, and that's also the very close high involvement of the researcher with consumers, their lives, attitudes, emotions, needs, and so on. And then the third question is, what can GenAI do that would not be possible without it, in order to further advance the benefits and the relevance of qualitative consumer insight? Yeah, but let's start with the beginning. This picture could show myself as a young researcher. It was always fun moderating group discussions with different people on a broad variety of topics. I also always enjoyed running workshops with marketers, decision makers, product innovation teams about the insights, the findings, the conclusions, the implementation of the insight. But in spite of all this acknowledgement, I always felt that qualitative consumer insight is rather a small niche. Qualitative consumer insight was, or maybe still is, somehow the Cinderella of market research compared to quantitative research and more recently big data analytics. Why? I think there are some more basic critical aspects of qual in the eyes of decision makers. Maybe it's sometimes not seen as very transparent. There are no numbers, no facts, but still what I hear from many decision makers is that qual is viewed as expensive and slow. And so obviously this needs to be addressed. I think GenAI already has helped in the past to speed up the process, making it more efficient. Just one example, there are great platforms out there that help to transcribe audio from groups, interviews, other consumer conversations. So that is already a big step forward, helps to increase the efficiency of the qualitative process. But what about the analysis, the reporting, the interpretation of the results? Reviewing heaps of transcripts of focus groups, in-depth interviews, and so on is actually really time-consuming. I don't know whether you have already made the experience, but that's my experience from many years of doing qual research, and therefore it's also a significant cost factor. And it also slows down the delivery of the insights, findings, recommendations to the decision makers, to the users of the results. So that is really a competitive disadvantage of qual as I see it, versus alternative approaches. And that's why I want to talk about GenAI in this webinar with you to how can we increase the relevance of qual insight, the benefit, the value created of qualitative research to decision makers, to the end users. Obviously, GenAI is really promising. So when as soon as ChatGPT was out, I started experimenting with the tool and qualitative consumer data transcripts. And for me, it was immediately obvious that ChatGPT at that time, it was the first on the market, but also its competitors as Gemini, as Mistral, and so on, are quite good at summarizing consumer conversations. That was the result of first test. So then I started to compare, look at different strategies, how to process such a large number of transcripts, heaps of transcripts. So that can be up to 500,000 words, 1 million words. I have done projects and analyzed with a GenAI until now with up to 2 million words. So how can this kind of data be processed using large language models, generative AI. And what I found was that the standard approaches that more technical experts of large language models, developers, for example, recommend are not really optimal, not really ideal for this kind of data. So I started to look for my own approach, because I found that the large language models as such are not really fully pre-trained for the analysis of qualitative consumer insight across many transcripts, across many interviews, for example. So I created my own procedure for processing this kind of data, the resulting retrieval and processing of transcripts resulted in a, let's say, improved, optimized algorithm, which provided quite good results in terms of analytics and insights and reporting of the data. So then as a next step, I integrated this algorithm into a small prototype and started to reach out to my peers and ask them to GenAI. And the first thing I had to do was find a solution for that issue. And I found it by using local regional deployments of large language models. So for example, currently I'm using a GPT-4 and GPT-4o model deployed with Azure in Switzerland. And I also have added the option of using Mistral for the analysis of qualitative data, because these providers offer you to opt out from data storage and, most importantly, using the data for training of their model. So having solved this initial problem, I could move on to the next challenge, and that was well, what's the quality of the output, and most importantly, how can we make sure that we get high quality output? Obviously, first I compared the results of automated analysis of qualitative projects to the result of previously compiled manual reporting, which I myself had been doing together with my team, with my colleagues. And the first comparison was quite okay. So we saw that the output of an automated analysis was quite complete, quite adequate, and there was no hallucination under the condition that you prompt in the right way. But I will show that later when there was a live example. Still, that is some kind of intuitive quality control, possibility control. So I was also looking for a possibility of having some kind of quantified indicator of the quality of the analysis of the output of an automated processing of qualitative data. Unfortunately, the standard indices that are offered by researchers for this kind of tasks, such as the Rouge score, are not really adequate. The Rouge score, for example, compares the summary, an automated summary, with a reference summary, but unfortunately with customized consumer projects, you typically do not have a reference summary upfront, so that was not viable. And also counting, matching words is not really what we are looking for. So what I found is that topic modeling, for example, with LDA, can be a solution, can be a rough indicator of the quality of the output. It compares the topic found in all the transcripts with the topics present in, for example, summaries. So that is some kind of objective approach to quality, but still it's only a rough indicator. So that's why my current personal conclusion is, regardless of some statistical approaches to quality control, we still need a senior researcher overseeing the quality of the process, the quality of the output, the quality of the analysis. So my personal approach to quality assurance is that I'm still highly involved with data collection. I do a part of the interviews myself. I have a look into the transcripts myself. So in order to check for plausibility and completeness of the output. Now, having solved the security, the GDPR compliance issue, but also the quality control aspects, I created the tool. I published the tool. It's a simple solution that is really focusing on both flexibility, but also flexibility. It's thought to be an assistant to the qualitative researcher, and can also take other roles, which we will see later on. It works similar to the ChatGPT prompt. So you have a possibility of a freestyle prompting as a researcher that allows you to fine-tune the kind of analysis you want the LLM to do. And quite important, it also allows to collaborate as a team with the same data and the same output. As you can see, it works similar to ChatGPT. Here you have a chat window. On the left-hand side, you have a menu. So for this webinar, I have uploaded 8 in-depth interview transcripts, each of about 15 minutes, about chocolate consumption. And let's see what we can do with it. So obviously, we first want to have a kind of summary. So we prompt for a summary. Let me just insert that. So the research is free about how to prompt for a specific summary. Just a general summary, a long summary, short summary by indicating the number of words, for example, for summary. And then let's run the analysis. So while the analysis is running, I can quickly guide you through the menu, what we can do. So obviously we are now in the Insight dashboard. We can add files, upload transcripts, Word, PDF, Excel. We can also automatically anonymize uploaded files. That means remove names and locations. We can download the full chat in Word format and then process it into a report. We can also upload audio files, which then are automatically transcribed and anonymized if required. And we can invite teams, share the data, the findings with the team. Okay, now the analysis has finished. And so that is the prompt I have entered here. Please write a summary with 400 words. And that is the summary. It obviously covers the emotional, the social and behavioral aspects, and then some more aspects the system found in the transcripts. So that is a really short summary with 400 words. If you want a detailed summary, you just say, I want a long summary, I want a detailed summary. Then you get the adequate format. The tool offers various roles. So maybe one interesting role is to extract verbatim quotes from transcripts, which are often used to illustrate certain findings of of your reporting. Okay, so again, I have changed, as you have seen, I have switched the role to extracting verbatim quotations. So it's no longer about analysis. It's about this extracting quotations. Again, I can prompt as I wish for whatever kind of quotations I'm looking for. So let's just see how that works. So for example, I want 3 questions about the guilt associated with chocolate. That's one of the topics I found in the summary. Now I want a verbatim quotation from the transcripts on this topic. And then the system is looking for, obviously, for verbatim comments, which you see here. We got 3 different verbatim comments that actually match this idea of guilt when consuming chocolate. The target audience of this tool, of this role of qualitative researcher, is obviously the qualitative market researcher. The tool takes the role of an assistant to the qualitative market researcher. On this slide, you see how I would define the persona in the audience that we are targeting with this functionality with this tool. Just let me illustrate the idea and the process with a specific use case. This use case is about a health insurance project. The strategic question of the project was, what are the needs and wants of consumers when choosing a health insurance provider in Switzerland? That's a big topic in Switzerland. We have conducted 20 in-depth interviews with churned customers. Each interview was about 30 minutes of discussion. We conducted the interviews online. The interviews have been conducted in Swiss, German, and French. And I have myself conducted the big part of the interviews, and some other interviews have been conducted by my colleagues. So that allows me really also to have some intuitive face validity approach to the findings of the large language models when we use the tool. We have transcribed the interviews also using GenAI. Then we have done an anonymization and also manually edited the interviews by freelancers in order to have a really good quality of input, which is crucial for this kind of analysis. These large language models, they can also digest quite well minutes which you type up during the interview or during a group discussion as observer. But I found that you get a really better quality of analysis, summaries, insights when you carefully transcribe interviews and really get the original voice of the consumer, unbiased and unfiltered. So what was the result? First, I compared the topics mentioned in the report that we generated automatically with the tool versus a previously compiled report, a report that I and my colleagues had been compiled before we used the tool. And it was interesting to see that when we look at the needs, barriers, expected features of a health insurance in Switzerland, if we compare that what we see in the automated report and in the previously in the report compiled manually, we see really 100% coverage. So nothing is missed out. So the completeness is absolutely great when we use this kind of tool with the right prompts, obviously. It was also nice to see how we can seamlessly integrate transcripts in German and French in this case in order to get an English report or a German report, which obviously is always a challenge if you do manual analysis because there are not so many bilingual researchers, if not in Switzerland. And then we also found that the LLM creates quite nice management summaries. So it's also good at weighting the relative importance, let's say, of different needs and barriers when selecting a health insurance mentioned by the respondents. So it's not just listing topics. It can also quite well differentiate between more and less relevant aspects. Then we also use the tool, as I've presented, for extracting verbatim quotations. So the tool is quite good at that. We got about 90% correct verbatim quotations. So why only 90%? LLMs tend to optimize the wording of the quotations from time to time, which obviously is not what we want, but it's also not that bad. Still, we are working on an improvement of that functionality. We will introduce a RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation based model, which means that the large language model really looks for a paragraph, sentences, which fit a specific topic, and then we copy paste, extract strings from the transcripts in order to be sure that it's really verbatim quotations and not just approximative quotations. So that was the result. Really amazing, impressive that we got a good quality reporting up to a management summary of these 20 quite significant interviews. But the most important finding was that using the tool, we save approximately 60% or even 60 to 70% of the time we would usually invest into the analysis of these heaps of transcripts, of long transcripts, which you need really analyze page by page, respondent by respondent, in order to come to good balanced conclusions. And so we really save a lot of time, and which also means we save costs or we save resources, which we then can invest into preparing, let's say, a better recommendation, better insights that are really to the point to the customer. And that's basically the point where we see the limits of this approach. So we have seen that we absolutely still need a finish by a senior researcher or a senior consultant. Of course, we need to check the quality, make sure that there's nothing going wrong in the analysis. But the most important, let's say, limitation of using these large language models in order to analyze qualitative consumer insight is actually that these that GenAI does not see the full picture. GenAI does not see the big picture. I try to illustrate that with this image of a Android driving a steam locomotive. So obviously, the system does not see the big picture. That's the problem when you use LLMs for the analysis of qualitative insight. We see you get complete, correct, absolutely correct, well-weighted summaries, reports, and so on. However, the tool does not provide a concise answer to the initial strategic question, taking into consideration the business model of the organization, of the customer, for example, the positioning of the brand of the organization, and the complexity of a regional local market. So that's why we still need a senior researcher, senior consultant, senior domain expert to really bring the conclusions, the insights, the recommendations to the point and to answer the initial strategic question of the end user, of the decision maker of the data. So this, I think, already answers the first two questions. I wanted to answer this webinar. Where can GenAI replace or substitute human labor? We see that we can save up to 60 or 70% of the human labor in terms of sifting through the transcripts and getting the basics done, the basic reporting done. But we still need human intervention to get conclusions insights, recommendations to the point. Now I would like to tackle the third question, which I think is really the most interesting question when it comes to GenAI and qualitative consumer insight. That is, what can GenAI do that would not be possible without it? The answer is GenAI can bring qualitative consumer insight beyond static reports. Generative AI can integrate qualitative consumer insight into the day-to-day activity, into the day-to-day work of marketers, of product innovation teams, of communication teams, of advertisers, and so on. How is that possible? End users, decision makers, can directly interact with the consumer's voice, with the qualitative consumer data. That is also known as prompt your data approach. And that is really a game changer. I think that is the most important game changer when it comes to the future of qual insights in the era of generative AI. Why is that? Obviously, it gives the end users direct access to the data, but it also solves a problem that we face now when a lot of users try to use, for example, ChatGPT or its competitors in order to create ideas, to create text, to create content, and so on. Obviously, ChatGPT is a great tool for many things, no doubt. However, if you look at actually what these large language models are, then you see that with a large language model, the knowledge of the world and the language competence is intertwined, cannot be separated. So that's why you get a lot of knowledge out of these LLMs. However, if you look at the information contained in a LLM, it's quite, you see quite a surprise. I mean, maybe it's quite impressive to see that GPT-4, for example, is 1.76 trillion parameters. However, if you compare this amount of data with the amount of information you find just in the World Wide Web, it's a tiny fraction. I tried to calculate it. That's 9 times 10 minus 9%. So it's 0.00001%. So it's about 8 zeros after the comma, which represents the knowledge in a LLM compared to the knowledge in the World Wide Web. And so the knowledge in a large language model obviously is very small to the world knowledge. That's why I think we have a great opportunity of using large language models not as kind of modern version of Google that solves our problems, but rather as a data processing, data analysis tool. So we start with specific domain data. For example, what do consumers expect, think about health insurance providers in Switzerland? That's very specific, very detailed domain data, which we then feed into the LLM, which also contains the relevant world knowledge. We need to interpret this data, and then processing these initial data, we get insight. So we use basically large language models as a data processing tool, which that way, let's say, gives us a better version of the ChatGPTs of this world, which are really tailored to our problem, which contain our very specific domain knowledge about our consumers, our markets, that help us to create new products, for example. So let me just give you a brief example how that works with the tool. Okay, just a moment. So when we use the tool, we can again scroll, and this time we select the role of product innovation. The basis, as you have seen, is in-depth interviews about chocolate consumption, needs and wants, and barriers. So we use this specific consumer data, consumer conversation, in order to create a chocolate bar. So the product category we are working on is chocolate bar, which I can define. For this product innovation exercise, I use in-depth interviews. I want the concept output in English. Okay, and so I again go to the prompt. And now I can just say what kind of concept I want to create. I want the system to create. So this is an example for a prompt. So I want one innovative, compelling, concise product concept, not too long, 200 words. I want the chocolate bar product, and I want that it addresses one of the most relevant needs, and not all the needs of the consumers, but one relevant need emerging from the transcripts. So let's see whether we get some output. Okay, be ready. So, okay, here we get the concept introducing the balance bar, chocolate bar designed for health-conscious consumers, struggling with the guilt of indulgence. So that is a text which still can be optimized by telling the large language model to make it shorter, more to the point, or maybe more factual, more sober, whatever tonality you like. So this is not predefined in this model. It's really a model for let's say, an expert user who uses it in order to optimize the output. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. The target audience of the tool, therefore, is not only the qualitative market researcher. Obviously, it's still the primary audience I have in mind when creating and developing this tool, and also when talking about GenAI in qualitative consumer insight. However, the great thing about GenAI is that we can set up tools which make it possible for marketing people, for product innovation teams, for content developers, for developers of communication concepts, to directly interact with unfiltered consumer input, with unfiltered consumer conversations. So in this case, yeah, it's a marketing person who does not want that consumer insight reports end up in the archive, which is often the case also with qualitative reports. And so the tool can be directly used for product innovation as shown. And we have used this tool with a more comprehensive basis of qualitative interviews. This was just a test version with a limited number of interviews. And we actually managed to create a valid concept for new organic sustainable chocolate treat based in the case of this project, which we then could directly use in quantitative survey research. So that is an example how qualitative consumer insights can go beyond static reports and become part of the day-to-day work of marketers and related functions. So I'd like to summarize the key takeaways, basically answering the three initial questions I want to address in this webinar. How can GenAI replace human labor? Obviously, it can be a research assistant, cannot be the senior researcher, it can be a research assistant, making qualitative consumer insight projects more agile and more affordable, which helps to make qual more relevant compared to alternative, maybe seemingly more efficient approaches, whereas human intervention is still required. LLMs often do not see the big picture, taking all factors into consideration simultaneously. That's something LLMs are not that good at. So for recommendations and insights to the point, answering the initial strategic question, we still need the senior researcher, senior consultant, expert. And what can GenAI do that would not be possible without it? With this chat your data approach, it can create product innovations, content, and so on from authentic, unfiltered consumer conversations based on really specific understanding of the consumer, not the general idea that you would find on ChatGPT. And therefore, it really can move the qualitative consumer insight from the archives, from static presentations into the day-to-day life of marketing and product development. So I think I have some time for questions. Okay, see there is already, okay, the name of the AI tool is Insight Lab AI. So you can just set up a free account and you can write me an email if you need a free upgrade. No problem at the moment. Okay, Lab AI. And what is the maximum of text that the tool can handle? So I've not seen that the tool would only use part of the data. And as I said, I have processed up to 2 million words. So that can be, let's say, 6 focus group discussions, 2.5 hours, each session, full transcript. So it was no problem to handle this amount of data. Of course, the tool allows to upload, let's say, a part of the data. For example, if you have users and non-users in different focus groups, you can upload first the users, then the non-user groups, and get separated summaries if you want to be sure that you get this specific amount. But so far, I have not really seen a maximum amount. Of course, the tool takes longer if you have more data, so you have to wait longer to get the results. Any other questions? It can digest Dutch language. However, I mean, it's the same as with German. These LLMs are just better in dealing with English text and with English output than with other languages. So what I would recommend is to prompt in English and to get the summaries in English, and then translate them with a specialized tool like DeepL. However, it can digest most languages, just with not with the same quality, because just the basics is not the same everywhere. Yeah. And it has problems with mad languages with a small basis. For example, Serbian is difficult. That's just my experience so far. Our plan is actually to integrate an API to DeepL, so that we would use DeepL for translation. So we would get high quality translations, also for languages which are, or for which the LLMs are not so well trained. So that will be the next step. Yes, so far we have first obviously done a training session with the end users, but then for them it was great, that they could ask additional questions to the original data whenever they wanted. They do not need to call the researcher. Okay, now we have this question. Can you please check with the data? What would you say about this topic based on your experience with the qualitative research? I think that is really the big advantage, the big plus that you can offer to a customer, that they really have the consumers as represented by, I don't know, 20, 30 in-depth interviews on their computer, which they can ask questions whenever they want. And they are sure they get answers based on their consumer their audience, their market, and the relevant product category.